Petals in the dust, a day with a perfume maker in medieval Damascus. The hour before dawn is not silent. It hums, gently. The air carries the faint rustle of branches stirring, the soft padding of cats across warm stones, and the sigh of wind weaving through the narrow alleys of Damascus. Inside the perfumer's home, a single lamp burns. Its wick, trimmed low, offers no more than a faint golden glow that dances against the plastered wall. The scent of yesterday's rosewater still clings to the clay floor, a memory in vapor. Yusuf, the perfumer, is already awake. He sits by the window for a few moments before rising, wrapped in a plain robe of soft cotton. His feet, bare on cool stone, move with the familiarity of ritual. He does not need light to guide him. The patterns of his day are carved into him like the faded script on the vials resting on his shelf. Before all else, he opens the wooden door to the garden. The hinges moan softly, a sound more of greeting than protest. Outside, the world is still drenched in the blue quiet of the pre-dawn hour. The garden is a pocket of softness in a city that, by midday, will roar with trade and talk. But now, only dew, only stillness. He takes a slow breath. There is the smell of soil. Of jasmine just beginning to open. Of rose petals touched by moonlight. The scent is not strong, not yet, but it promises what the day will offer. The garden is not large, but every inch of it is known to Yusuf. Along one side grows a narrow hedge of myrtle. Along another, small pots of basil and marjoram. But it is the roses, those pale, blushing damask roses, that dominate. They do not grow in neat lines. Yusuf allows them to wander. Their stems twist gently over one another like threads on a loom. He believes beauty needs freedom. He bends low and touches the petals, testing them for softness and scent. The first blooms of the morning are always the finest. Before the sun steals their perfume, before bees take their share, he does not pluck them roughly. He slides his fingers beneath the base of the flower, lifting it just so, then snaps it off with a practiced flick of the wrist. The motion is so smooth, so soft, that the petals do not tremble. They surrender. Yusuf places the flowers into a shallow basket woven from palm fibers. It rests on a low stone bench near the garden wall. With each handful of petals, the scent builds, layer by layer, like the quiet opening notes of a melody. From inside, the sound of gentle footsteps. His apprentice arrives, still sleepy-eyed, rubbing his arms against the early chill. Yusuf nods toward the row of younger rose bushes. The boy says nothing, but he understands. In this garden, mornings begin with silence. The boy's name is Marwan. He has been with Yusuf for only 6 months, and he speaks little. But Yusuf watches the way he moves, how carefully he handles the petals, how he pauses before picking, as if asking permission from the flower itself. This, Yusuf knows, cannot be taught. Only nurtured. Marwan moves along the row with bare feet, stepping lightly on the flagstones warmed by last evening's sun. His tunic, too long for his frame, gathers dust at the hem. He does not mind. Dust is part of the world, Yusuf has said, and even petals fall into it. From time to time, the boy looks up to meet Yusuf's eyes. No words are exchanged. Only a look, simple, steady, full of a shared rhythm. A language born of repetition and trust. Together, they move through the garden. Petal by petal, bush by bush. The basket fills slowly, the scent deepens. No bees buzz yet. No neighbors stir. The city still sleeps, and Yusuf is grateful. In the distance, a rooster crows. Faint, then fading. Marwan sets the basket near the copper alembic, and Yusuf lights the small burner beneath it. The first flickers of flame catch and hold. A pot of clear water is placed above it, and soon, a coil of copper will begin to breathe. The alembic is not a machine, it is a companion. Made of hammered copper and shaped like an onion bulb, it sits on the stone bench as if it has always been there. Its surface has darkened with time. Its seams are sealed with dough, soft and still faintly warm. Yusuf fills the belly of the vessel with petals and just enough water. No more. The fire beneath it is low and slow, for haste in perfume is an insult to the flower. Steam rises eventually, curling through the copper tube and into a coiled spiral cooled by running water. At its end, a drip, slow and clear, into a glass beaker. The distillate is thin now, faint, almost too subtle to detect. But as more petals yield their essence, it will grow. Yusuf watches not with impatience, but reverence. He remembers his own teacher, years ago, who taught him never to speak during the first distillation of the day. Let the roses speak first, the old man had said. So he listens. Marwan sits cross-legged nearby, polishing the glass vials that will soon hold the rosewater. He hums softly under his breath. Yusuf says nothing. The harmony between flame, water, and scent is delicate. Even joy must be gentle here. The garden, once shadowed, now glows. Sunlight touches the top of the garden wall, painting it in soft gold. The vines catch the light like green lace. The warmth has not yet arrived, but its promise is in the air. Damascus stretches quietly awake, one rooftop at a time. A long, rolling voice echoes through the morning, a muezzin calling from the nearest minaret. The notes are long, measured, deeply human. They drift above the rooftops and settle gently across the garden like mist. Yusuf sets aside his tools and steps toward the basin to wash his hands and face. The water is cold and clear. It grounds him. Marwan follows, standing just behind. They do not speak. In this moment, words are smaller than silence. When the prayer is finished, they return to the bench. The alembic's coil still drips, slower now. The beaker is half full of clear, fragrant liquid. Yusuf raises it to the light, watching the way it catches the sun. He does not smile broadly, but a quiet satisfaction lives in his eyes. This is not the end of a task. It is the beginning of a fragrance. A breath of morning, captured in glass. The garden fades behind them, but its scent lingers. Even as Yusuf steps inside, the soft notes of rose cling to his robe and hands, following him into the next space like loyal companions. The doorway leads to a shaded room, neither dark nor bright, but held in a state of quiet balance, like the pause between verses of a poem. This is the workshop. The air is cooler here, thickened with decades of fragrant memory. It is not an overwhelming scent, not loud or sharp. Rather, it is the gentlest layering of aromas, oils aged in clay, the faint musk of closed wood, forgotten threads of lavender and cedar seeping from sealed vials. The smell of time. Yusuf walks with soft steps across the stone floor, worn smooth from years of passage. The shelves are the same he has used since he was a boy. His father built them from walnut wood. The grain runs like rivulets through the planks, and over time, the wood has darkened to a near-black patina. Here, every shelf holds bottles, arranged not by type, but by feeling. He does not label them in Latin, nor Arabic, nor Greek. Instead, each vial bears a small knot of colored thread, red for warmth, white for clarity, blue for depth, green for surprise. Only Yusuf understands this system fully. It is a language built over years, shaped by instinct more than instruction. The bottles themselves are as varied as the scents they hold. Some are simple glass, clear and round. Others are carved, thick-bottomed, clouded, faintly bluish from age. A few are ancient, Roman flasks, unearthed in the old city, rescued and given new life. Each one holds more than oil. It holds a moment. The morning sun reaches into the room through a high window, its light stretched thin across the shelves. Dust moves through it like slow smoke. Yusuf watches it drift for a moment, then turns toward his workbench, a broad slab of stone, cool and clean. Today's task is a blend. A commission. He unrolls the parchment beside the bench, a letter, written in careful script, the lines almost calligraphic. The sender is a noblewoman from the western quarter of the city. She requests a scent to soothe restless thoughts. She writes, narrowly, fig, and the faint hush of cedar, a perfume for evenings spent alone. Yusuf reads the words aloud once, barely whispering. He does not question them. Scent is a private language, and every request is a kind of confession. What the noblewoman desires is not a product, it is a memory, or a feeling not yet named. He moves slowly, reaching first for a narrow-necked bottle with a pale gold thread. Narrowly. He uncorks it with care, holding the stopper beneath his nose. The scent strikes like sun on citrus leaves, sharp, bright, and strangely clean. He nods, then sets it aside. Next, a squat, dark bottle with a band of green thread. Fig leaf. The oil is thicker, and its scent more elusive, green, yes, but shadowed. Like the cool underside of a fig tree in late summer, where light struggles to reach and breath slows. Finally, cedar. The cedar oil is kept in a small ceramic jar sealed with wax. It is not often used. Yusuf breaks the seal with a brass knife, and the scent rises, dry, grounded, ancient. It smells of carved chests, of scrolls, of the places where stories rest. He places all three vessels before him and begins to breathe, not deeply, not quickly, but as if listening. The task is not to mix. It is to understand. The noblewoman has asked for scent, but she is really asking to be seen. Yusuf closes his eyes. The blend begins in silence. Yusuf does not measure in drops. He measures in pauses. Each oil is cradled carefully, its stopper lifted with steady fingers, never rushed. From the narrowly bottle, he lets fall a single bead of golden liquid into a small ceramic mixing dish, white, worn, and shaped like a shallow shell. The scent rises immediately, bright and clean, as if the morning had returned in liquid form, but narrowly alone is too sharp for evenings. It awakens. It does not soothe. He waits, letting the fragrance settle. The room responds, but gently, the stone walls absorb scent rather than echo it, and the wooden shelves remain silent. There is a stillness in this part of the house that does not ask for music, nor for speech. Next comes fig. He warms the fig leaf oil first, not over flame, but between his palms. The small glass vial is turned slowly, again and again, until its contents respond. Then, with a practiced tilt, he pours just the slightest trace into the dish beside the narrowly. The air shifts. The brightness of narrowly no longer stands alone. It leans now, softly, against the green, secret coolness of figure. Like day leaning into dusk, Marwan watches from across the bench, silent but intent. He has seen Yusuf blend before, but never for a noblewoman. He leans forward, nose tilted slightly, trying to catch the scent without disturbing the space. Yusuf does not stop him. Curiosity, when gentle, is welcome here. Lastly, the cedar. This must be done with care. Cedar does not sing, it hums. Too much, and the scent becomes memoryless, like old paper. But just enough, and it wraps around the blend like a distant room at the end of a hallway. Yusuf uses a sliver of reed to draw up the cedar oil. Not a drop, only a trace. He lets it fall into the mix like the last note of a song. Then, he waits. The oils begin to whisper to one another. Not with heat, not with stirring, but with proximity. Yusuf tilts the ceramic dish slightly, letting the blend pool at one end. He holds it close to his face and inhales, slowly, shallowly. Not searching, but inviting. It is not done. There is something missing, not a scent, but a texture. The blend feels thin, like silk without weight. It needs anchoring. He reaches for a final vial, one not mentioned in the letter, but kept close for moments such as these. It holds labdanum, dark and honeyed, thick as molasses. Only the smallest drop is used, drawn with the end of a date thorn and let fall into the blend with solemnity. Now he inhales again. This time, he closes his eyes. What he smells is not simply a combination of flowers and leaves. It is the moment a breeze enters a quiet courtyard. The sound of pages turning near an oil lamp. A woman sitting alone with a letter half written. It is a feeling, not a fragrance. Marwan speaks, at last, his voice no more than a thread. It smells, like sitting still. Yusuf opens his eyes, and nods. Yes, he replies softly. That is the beginning. With the scent balanced in the mixing bowl, Yusuf prepares for the next part of the ritual, bottling. Not merely storing, not simply transferring. This is the act of containing silence, of choosing a vessel worthy of what it will hold. He walks toward the corner shelf, fingertips trailing along the wood as if listening for something. The noblewoman's scent must not be placed in a common bottle. It needs stillness, it needs softness, and most of all, it needs privacy. Yusuf selects a pale green glass vial, hand-blown many years ago. Its neck is slightly uneven, its belly round, like a pebble shaped by water. The glass catches the morning light and turns it mossy. A thin gold thread remains wrapped around its neck from the last time it was used. He unties it and brushes the bottle clean with a square of soft cotton. At the workbench, the blend has settled. The oils now rest together, indistinguishable, one body, one breath. Yusuf picks up a long, thin glass dropper. He dips it slowly into the blend, drawing up the golden liquid with care. There is no rush. A hurried hand would spill, waste, break. He leans forward, guiding the dropper into the waiting bottle. One slow release, then another. The oil pools gently at the bottom, its color warm and steady. Marwan leans closer, eyes fixed not on the liquid but on Yusuf's hands. There is something almost ceremonial in the way the elder man works, not stiff or formal, but devoted. Marwan is too young to articulate it, but he senses it, the hands of someone who believes that even a small act, if done with care, becomes sacred. Once filled, the vial is stoppered with a small cork, softened by wax and wrapped again in gold thread. Yusuf ties it without looking, his fingers moving with the ease of 100 repetitions. He does not double knot. One loop is enough. Too much effort, he once said, becomes decoration. And fragrance is not meant to impress. It is meant to accompany. He places the finished bottle on a square of folded linen. Then, reaching for a strip of parchment, he prepares the label. He does not write her name. He writes only a symbol, a crescent cradling a fig leaf, followed by the word layali, nights. That is what this perfume was made for. Nights not filled with sleep, but with thought. With half-spoken memories. With letters started and never sent. He hands the vial to Marwan. Go place this by the cedar box, Yusuf says softly. It will wait there until the courier comes. Marwan takes it with both hands, holding it as he would a teacup filled to the brim. Yusuf watches him go, then lowers himself to sit. The scent lingers in the air, delicate, balanced, barely there. It fills the room not with noise, but with presence. In the quiet that follows, Yusuf closes his eyes. He breathes slowly. And for a moment, he allows himself to imagine the noblewoman opening the bottle that evening, alone, perhaps, in a quiet room with shutters drawn. He does not imagine her reaction. He imagines the stillness that may come afterward. After the noblewoman's blend is placed carefully among the outgoing bottles, the room seems quieter than before, as if it has exhaled. Yusuf does not immediately return to his mixing bench. Instead, he turns toward the long wooden table where scrolls and scraps of cloth lie undisturbed. "Come," he says, gently beckoning to Marwan. The boy sets aside his cloth and approaches, hesitant but attentive. Yusuf rolls out a wide sheet of parchment. It is stained and creased, its edges curling, but the ink remains clear, lists of ingredients written in both Arabic and Syriac, some crossed out, some circled in fading red. "This," Yusuf says, "is not a recipe." Marwan looks down at the scroll, puzzled. "It is a conversation," Yusuf explains. "Each oil, each flower, each resin, it speaks. And when you combine them, they either argue, or agree." He points to a combination scribbled in the margin: vetiver, clove, rose. "Do you know what this says?" Marwan shakes his head. "It says, morning." "Vetiver is the earth," Yusuf continues, "clove is pain. Rose is what we remember." The boy is quiet, but not out of confusion, he is listening deeply. Yusuf reaches for 3 small bottles and lines them up. He uncorks each one and places a narrow silk strip into each, allowing it to absorb just a breath of oil. He waves them gently in the air to release the stronger notes, then places them before the boy. "Don't just smell," he says softly. "Let your mind settle." Marwan leans forward. He takes his time. The vetiver is deep, green-brown and slightly bitter. It smells of soil after rain. Clove strikes sharp, familiar, like the spice markets, or a hidden kitchen on a winter night. Rose is sweet, but not simply sweet. It is layered. It pulls at something beneath the ribs. "I feel quiet," the boy says, unsure of how else to say it. Yusuf nods. "That is enough. Scent is not about words. It is about what happens inside you, without asking permission." He motions to the scroll again. "These lists? They are only starting points. But you must never rely on them. Every batch of oil is different. One drop too fresh, one flower dried in the wrong sun, and the scent turns false." Yusuf moves to the shelf and retrieves a tiny, dark vial sealed with resin. "Open this." Marwan does. He sniffs, hesitates, then inhales more deeply. Smoke, and something warm. "I don't know the word." "Labdanum," Yusuf says. "Harvested from rock rose. Used when you want the scent of memory." Marwan closes the bottle and holds it a moment longer. "How do you know what someone will remember?" Yusuf's eyes crinkle with a slow, nearly invisible smile. "You don't. But you can offer something quiet enough that it allows memory to come forward on its own." The room falls into stillness again. The scroll lies open, the scent strips rest like small feathers across the table, and the day drifts softly toward its second hour. Outside, the birds begin to stir in the fig trees. Inside, Yusuf and his apprentice sit quietly, between scent and silence. The morning has deepened. Light now stretches more boldly through the narrow window above the shelves, casting angled bands across the stone floor. They fall in slow motion, dust caught in their path like drifting threads of silk. The room glows with the palest gold, as though dipped in tea. Yusuf moves toward the tall shelf in the corner, one rarely disturbed. This is the amber shelf. It holds oils that are more than ingredients. They are inheritances. Fragments of distant cities, forgotten groves, ships that docked once and never returned. Oils from Yemen, from Anatolia, from across the sea where spices grow like trees. Some bottles are wrapped in cloth to protect them from light. Others are stored in miniature ceramic pots sealed with wax and string. Their surfaces are unremarkable, but Yusuf knows each one by touch. He selects a bottle with a wax seal that bears the impression of a crescent moon. It contains attar of saffron, a golden oil so rare that he uses it only once or twice a year. Marwan watches silently, sensing the reverence in Yusuf's motion. He knows not to ask questions. Yusuf uncorks the bottle and allows the scent to emerge on its own. It does not shout, it arrives slowly, steadily. The smell of sunlight, not just light, but the warmth of morning through silk curtains. There is a hum of spice to it, and something nearly bitter beneath, the ache of longing. Yusuf holds the bottle toward the boy. "This is for when joy needs anchoring," he says, "it keeps happiness from floating away." Marwan inhales and says nothing. He simply nods. Yusuf returns the bottle to its place and wraps it again in cotton. These oils are not for everyday work. They are kept, like words we say only when needed. Not for markets or nobles. For moments of quiet wait. He turns back to the table, where a new set of requests has arrived, small folded notes tied with colored string, placed beside the morning tea that Marwan brought in earlier and left untouched. Yusuf sips now. The tea has cooled, its flavor muted, but he drinks it all the same. Warm or cold, it grounds him. Then, as he often does before beginning again, he opens the shutters of the room just slightly, allowing the garden scent to return. It drifts in with the air, faint rose, jasmine leaf, and the distant smoke of a brazier somewhere in the neighborhood. Marwan places the used mixing dish in a wooden tray for washing. He moves quietly, his presence light. A little more confident now, though never hurried. Yusuf gathers the notes one by one and glances at the script. One requests a scent for courage. Another, for memory. A third, simply, for sleep. He sets the requests aside. Each will require listening. But first, he wipes the workbench clean with a square of muslin, its edge frayed and familiar. The oils may change, but the table must always begin in silence. The hour turns, marked not by bells, but by the shift in light. Outside, the shadows grow shorter. Inside, a new blend waits to be born. It begins, as many stories in Yusuf's world do, with the sound of quiet footsteps on stone. The door to the perfume shop remains open during the morning hours, not because Yusuf expects customers, but because he believes air should move freely, scent must breathe. Beyond the doorway lies the shaded corridor that leads to the street, cool and lined with weathered brick. And it is there, in that muted hallway, that the sound arrives, a rhythm of careful steps, soft soles worn by miles of road. Yusuf doesn't look up immediately. He is finishing the last blend from the morning's requests, wiping the rim of a narrow-necked bottle with a clean cloth. But the footsteps do not pass. They pause just beyond the threshold, not entering, not leaving. Waiting. He raises his eyes slowly. A man stands in the shadow of the doorway, half lit by sunlight filtering through the grapevines that drape above. His robes are the color of dust after rain, faded gray-brown, travel-worn, and heavy with miles. His face is weathered, but not harsh. His eyes, sharp and dark, rest quietly on Yusuf's. He says nothing at first. Yusuf nods in greeting, not as a merchant, but as one craftsman to another. The man steps forward. In his right hand, he carries a small scroll tied with string, sealed with a mark Yusuf doesn't recognize. In his left, nothing, his hand hangs slightly open, as if accustomed to carrying something that is now gone. "Peace be upon you," the man says, his voice low and dry from travel. "And upon you, peace," Yusuf replies. "Come in. Sit. You have walked far." The merchant bows his head and crosses the threshold. The scent of the shop, fig, rose, cedar, and faint clove, surrounds him. For a moment, he closes his eyes, breathing it in as if the air itself might loosen something held too tightly. Yusuf offers a cushion and pours a small cup of water from a clay jug, setting it before the guest without question. No names are exchanged. In Damascus, names come slowly, if at all. The man sits carefully, as if unsure whether to settle or rise again. He sets the scroll on the low table and folds his hands. Yusuf does not ask what he wants. Instead, he waits. Silence stretches between them, not uncomfortably. The kind of silence where thought begins to form. Where the words that matter must be chosen. Finally, the man speaks. "My wife," he begins. "She once wore a scent. Long ago. Before we were married, before she even knew me." His voice cracks, but only slightly. "It was Iris. I think. But softer. There was something in it that I've never been able to name. It was her, before I knew who she was. Before she was mine." He pauses. His fingers touch the scroll, but he doesn't open it. "Now she is ill," he says. "She does not remember much. Some days, not even her name. But she remembers that scent. Or perhaps just how it made her feel." Yusuf listens, eyes lowered in respect. The room seems to narrow, drawing in closer around them. "Can you find it?" the man asks. Yusuf does not answer right away. He simply places one hand lightly on the scroll, and the other on his chest. "We can try," he says. The merchant exhales, not with relief, but with release. Yusuf stands. This will not be a blend drawn from the shelves. It will not be based on letters or lists. It will come from memory, someone else's memory, and the delicate act of following what remains. Outside, the light shifts. Inside, a new story begins to take shape, not told with words, but with scent. The scroll remains unopened. Neither man reaches for it. Yusuf knows that what matters now cannot be written. The merchant, whose name is still unspoken, watches the light shifting on the wall. It flickers through the grape leaves above, casting dancing green shadows across the plaster, soft, slow, rhythmic, like breath. "You said it was Iris?" Yusuf asks gently. The merchant nods. "I think so. Not the kind that sings, but the kind that hums. Rooted. Dry. Almost like parchment left in a cedar box." Yusuf's eyes lift slightly. He walks to the shelf marked with white thread, the corner where he keeps the quiet scents. Not the ones used for opulence or seduction, but those kept for memory, for mourning, for reverence. He retrieves a small flask sealed with a cork darkened by time. Its label is gone, rubbed away by years of handling, but Yusuf knows the contents by weight, by the way the liquid moves inside. Orris root, the aged essence of iris, distilled over years until it smells less like flower and more like memory. He brings it to the table and uncorks it without ceremony. The merchant leans forward slightly, but does not inhale quickly. He waits. The scent rises slowly, cool, faintly powdery, with an echo of something once warm. Like an old letter reopened after decades, the man closes his eyes. Not from satisfaction, but from effort, the effort of remembering. "That's part of it," he whispers. "The center, maybe. But there was something softer layered in. Something, like early sun on stone." Yusuf tilts his head. Not puzzled, but intrigued. He turns to the wall where the herbal oils rest. The floral ones are too bright for what the merchant describes. What he seeks is not a bloom in full light, but one opening just before dawn. He selects 2 bottles, one violet, one unmarked. From the first, he draws a note of mimosa, soft, pale, like golden dust on skin. From the second, he offers a faint trace of benzoin, not sweet, but round, comforting, like aged parchment or milk warmed with spice. One by one, Yusuf opens the bottles, placing a silk testing strip into each. He does not wave them. Instead, he rests them on the low table, equidistant from one another, a quiet triangle of scent. "Try these," he says. The merchant bends forward. First mimosa. His expression does not change, but his breath catches slightly. Then benzoin, and his eyelids lower, not in recognition exactly, but in longing. Finally, orris root again. "Together," he says quietly. "They belong together. But, there's still something missing." Yusuf nods, not disappointed. This is not failure. This is the unfolding. He leans back, eyes searching the shelves not with urgency, but with memory. He is not looking for a solution, he is listening for a sound, a chord that will complete the music the merchant cannot fully sing. The man sits still. His hands now rest lightly on his knees. The lines in his face do not soften, but something in his shoulders loosens. For Yusuf, this is the real labor of perfumery, not blending oils, but translating silence. Feeling his way through someone else's longing. "We will keep listening," Yusuf says at last. The merchant nods again. "It's strange," he murmurs. "I don't remember what the scent smelled like, only what it felt like when she wore it. As if everything else in the world had become quieter." Yusuf allows that to settle. "Then that is what we will make," he replies. "Not the scent. The quiet." Yusuf moves slowly now, as if navigating a memory not his own. He stands before the back shelf of the workshop, the deepest one, nearly hidden behind a faded curtain of linen. These bottles are older, rarer, sometimes stubborn. They are not often opened. Some haven't been touched in months, some even longer. But this request, this quiet ache the merchant carries, calls for something aged. Something that doesn't announce itself, but lingers, like a thought just before waking. His hand hovers over several vials. He does not reach for the obvious ones. Not rose, nor sandalwood, nor musk. He chooses instead an old bottle sealed with wax, its bottom rounded, its shoulders thick. Oak moss. He remembers when he first smelled it as a young apprentice. It had surprised him, not floral, not herbal, but earthy, and deep, like cool stone beneath wet leaves. A scent that speaks from below, not above. He uncorks it with care and touches a drop to a silk strip. At the table, the merchant leans forward again. His breath deepens, not a gasp, not a revelation, but the inward pull of recognition. "That's it," he murmurs. "That's the silence." Yusuf nods. Oak moss will be the anchor. Not the scent she wore, perhaps, but the scent that surrounded her. The one that held her. He begins, very slowly, to build the blend. He places a wide ceramic bowl before him, not glass. Glass would echo the scent too brightly. He prefers the softness of clay, the way it humbles the oils, taming their sharpness. First, a base of diluted orris, not the root itself, but an aged infusion, mellowed over years. Then oak moss, folded in drop by drop with the tip of a brass spoon. It darkens the blend slightly, turns its color the shade of steeped fig leaf tea. He adds mimosa next, a brief note of powdery sunlight, then the trace of benzoin. The resin melts slightly, slow to surrender, as all good things are. The scent rises as a question, not an answer. Yusuf leans over it, breathing gently, eyes half closed. He does not seek perfection. He seeks the feeling the merchant described, as if everything else in the world had become quieter. He dips a fresh silk strip into the mixture and hands it to the man. The merchant accepts it like a letter. He holds it near, but does not inhale immediately. Instead, he watches the way the scent moves, how it rises, how it waits. Then he breathes in, and closes his eyes. There is a long silence. Yusuf does not speak. At last, the man sets the strip down gently, almost reluctantly. She smiled when she wore it, he says softly. But not the kind of smile you see. The kind you feel. His voice wavers, but only slightly. This feels close. Yusuf inclines his head. Not proud. Only present. Then we are near. The blend is not finished, but the path is clearer now. It will take hours to adjust, the ratios, the steeping, the softness. But Yusuf is patient. This is not work done with time in mind. It is done by quiet degrees. Outside, a breeze rises. It stirs the leaves over the doorway. Light dances along the bottles. Inside, two men sit, one shaping the scent of remembrance, the other remembering how to breathe. The merchant has stepped into the courtyard, invited there by Marwan for tea. Yusuf remains inside. The door is left slightly ajar, allowing soft air and muffled conversation to pass through like threads in a tapestry. But inside the workshop, the world is still. Yusuf leans once more over the mixing bowl, the blend resting quietly in its curve of clay. It has begun to cool. Scents shift when the warmth leaves them, notes that once danced now lie close, layered. He inhales again. It is good. But not yet whole. There is too much orris, not in scent, but in texture. The blend lies like fine silk, smooth but distant. It needs a thread to draw it inward, to give it shape without disturbing its stillness. He turns to the reed box near the far wall, a small, narrow case kept for the rarest fragments. Inside are dried petals, curled bark, a small cloth stained with civet. But what he seeks now is a note even quieter than silence. He finds it in a scrap of soaked oud, aged wood from the east, darkened by time and resin. Not strong, not smoky, but softened by years of storage. He warms it gently over the brazier, letting the scent rise into the room like a sigh beneath a breath. With a tiny spoon, he scrapes just the faintest bit of this wood-infused oil and adds it to the blend. The shift is immediate, not louder, but deeper. The scent becomes less of a surface and more of a space. Like stepping not through a doorway, but into a room dim with memory. Yusuf tests it again, this time on a square of muslin, the kind a woman might use to press against her collarbone or tuck into the sleeve of a robe. He allows it to rest there, the oil warming against the cloth for several minutes before lifting it once more to his nose. He closes his eyes. Now, the blend carries weight. Not heaviness, but the weight of something once held and remembered. The smell is no longer simply floral or woody. It is a shape, a moment preserved. It feels like dusk. He folds the cloth and sets it on the table. When the merchant returns, his face shaded from the garden light, Yusuf simply nods and offers him the folded muslin. This, Yusuf says, is what came after the silence. The man receives it as though receiving something sacred. He does not speak. He lifts it carefully, breathes in. There is no gasp. No exclamation. Only a stillness that grows wider. Yes, he says at last. That's the room. Yusuf does not ask what room. He does not ask when, or why. It is not necessary. Some truths live only in scent. The merchant rests the cloth on his lap. His hands remain there for a long moment, not moving, as though holding more than fabric. She may not recognize it, he says, but perhaps, her heart will. Yusuf nods again. The heart remembers where the mind cannot. And so, with the blend now finished, he turns again to the shelf, this time, to choose a vessel. Not an elaborate vial. Not a bottle of polished glass. He selects a small ceramic flask, unglazed, the kind often carried in a traveler's pouch. Simple. Quiet. Like the scent it will hold. Outside, the shadows of the courtyard stretch longer. The day leans gently toward afternoon. Inside, Yusuf pours the perfume not as a maker, but as a witness, to love, to forgetting, to the moments that linger when all else fades. Yusuf pours the final blend into the small, unglazed flask with slow precision. The liquid moves like honeyed shadow, thick yet fluid, its color barely visible against the matte clay. No label is added. No ribbon tied. Only a soft strip of muslin wrapped once around the neck, not as decoration, but as memory. The merchant watches, seated still on the same cushion, hands clasped loosely in his lap. He has not spoken again. There is nothing more to say, and that in itself is a kind of peace. When Yusuf finishes sealing the flask with a cork and soft beeswax, he carries it with both hands and offers it wordlessly. The man takes it gently, cradling it with care, not like a gift, nor a purchase, but as something returned to him after a long absence. "I don't know if she'll know," he says softly. "But I wanted to try." Yusuf nods. His voice is quiet when it comes. It is not always about recognition. Sometimes, it is about comfort. The merchant looks down at the bottle. "Do I owe you?" he asks, though he does not yet reach for his purse. Yusuf lifts a hand, palm open, declining. "You've already paid," he says. "You remembered." The silence that follows is soft and full. Not empty. Outside, a bird begins to call from the fig tree. The sound is distant, softened by the courtyard walls. The light has shifted again, turning amber through the vines, dappling the doorway like the edge of an old tapestry. The merchant rises slowly, the flask tucked safely into a fold of his robe. He does not rush. There is no urgency in departure, only a quiet acceptance that the moment has passed. As he turns to go, he pauses at the threshold. His back to Yusuf, eyes toward the street, he speaks one final time. "She always said I smelled of ink and dust. I never wore scent." Yusuf smiles gently. "Then today," he says, "you carry something else." The man steps into the light and is gone. Yusuf does not watch him disappear down the corridor. He remains standing in the doorway, allowing the breeze to pass over his face, bringing with it the faintest trace of fig leaf and old cedar. Marwan re-enters a moment later, eyes curious. "Was that a customer?" he asks. Yusuf shakes his head. "No," he says quietly. "A memory, passing through." Marwan says nothing, but he watches the elder man carefully. Something about Yusuf's face, softened, but distant, tells him that today's work was not ordinary. That what happened was not just scent, but something quieter. Something sacred. Yusuf returns to the bench. The ceramic bowl still holds a trace of the blend. He does not wipe it clean just yet. Instead, he places a cover over it, to keep the scent from fading too quickly. Sometimes, it is good to let a memory linger a little longer before letting it go. The sun leans further west. Outside, Damascus continues in its quiet rhythms, sellers calling out in the souk, laundry swaying on lines, pigeons wheeling overhead. Inside, a man sits alone at his table. But he is not empty. He is full of scent, of silence, and the knowledge that, just for a moment, he helped someone return to something once beloved. And perhaps, that is enough. The sun has risen higher now, settling into its noonday arc. Shadows shrink against the walls of Yusuf's workshop, and the warm light casts every jar and bottle into a muted glow, as if the scents themselves are resting. Yusuf stands by the open doorway, shoulders draped in a soft cotton shawl dyed the color of apricots. The air smells of warm dust, sun on stone, and the faint sweetness of drying fig leaves. It is the hour when the city's breath slows, but not stops. He ties the shutters open with quiet fingers and nods to Marwan. "Watch the shop," he says gently. "I'll be back before the shadows grow long." Marwan nods, used to these moments. He does not ask where Yusuf goes, because it is never truly the same place twice. Yusuf does not run errands, he listens to the city. Stepping beyond the wooden door, Yusuf passes through the shaded corridor into the light-soaked street. His sandals press into the worn stone of the alleyway. Even in summer, the walls keep the path cool. Above, patterned screens cast slow-moving shadows across the ground, geometric lattices dancing in the wind. The city breathes. He does not take the direct road to the market. Instead, he turns first toward the spice quarter, where the scent of cumin and dried lime hangs thick in the air. Merchants sit cross-legged in front of trays shaped like petals, each filled with color. Crimson paprika. Yellow turmeric. Orange threads of saffron that shimmer when the breeze catches them. But Yusuf does not stop to purchase. He walks as one might read a book, slowly, following the meaning behind each scent. He pauses beside a stall of dried blossoms. Rosebuds the color of fading coral. Chamomile the shade of parchment. Jasmine, curled and brittle, but still sweet. He leans close to one tray, inhales gently, then moves on. These flowers are not for perfumes, not today. They are too dry, too crushed. But they carry something important, the scent of the year so far. The scent of the fields after harvest. The scent of time, made visible. The crowd thickens slightly as he nears the main avenue of the souk. But even here, Yusuf does not rush. The noise surrounds him, but never enters him. Children dart between baskets of lemons. A boy recites verses for sale in the book market, holding out pages inked with care. A woman sings softly behind her display of linens, folding cloth that smells faintly of starch and sun. Then, without fanfare, Yusuf steps beneath the broad archway that marks the edge of the covered market, where cloth shades the stalls like the inside of a tent, and the air turns dense with incense and heat. Here, the scents change. Frankincense rises first, dry, sparkling, almost cold in its brightness. Then comes the dark pull of myrrh, smoky and low, curling beneath the frankincense like a shadow. Yusuf closes his eyes for a moment, letting the mixture settle over him like silk. These are scents too strong for his shop, but perfect for places like this. Loud places, sacred places, places filled with longing. He walks deeper into the souk, not toward anything, but with everything. A basket of green almonds. A bag of sumac. A child's hand dipping sticky fingers into a honey jar, then wiping them on his tunic with a laugh. This is not a city of streets. It is a city of moments, and Yusuf is here to witness them, one scent at a time. Yusuf walks with measured steps through the inner souk, the cloth canopy above casting everything in a gentle amber light. Here, the noise seems to echo and fade in equal measure. Voices rise, then vanish behind latticework and folding wooden shutters. The air hums with the rhythm of quiet industry. He turns into a narrower corridor, where the crowds thin, and the scents deepen. Fewer spices here. Fewer baskets of fruit. Instead, sealed jars, dark flasks, bits of tree bark arranged like relics. This is where the resins live. At the far end, beneath a hanging curtain of dried bay leaves, sits a vendor Yusuf has known for years. His name is Harun, though few use it. In the market, he is simply called the keeper, not for what he sells, but for what he remembers. Harun does not stand as Yusuf approaches. He nods, the movement slow and fond. Still chasing ghosts, are we? He murmurs, voice low as old velvet. Yusuf smiles. He lowers himself onto the low stool beside the stall, where the scent of storax and dried fig resin fills the space like incense. Not ghosts, he replies softly. Just what they leave behind. Harun chuckles, reaching for a small clay jar. He lifts the lid and holds it toward Yusuf. Here. I've a new blend of mastic and sweet myrrh. A trader brought it down from the northern hills. Too sharp for my customers. But perhaps, not for yours. Yusuf inhales. The scent is strange, bitter at the edge, but beneath it, something warm and resinous, like the sweetness of burnt wood. He tilts his head slightly. It smells like dusk on cold stone. Haroun raises a brow. You and your metaphors. But he smiles as he says it. Around them, the market swells and quiets in waves. A brass pot clatters against cobble in the distance. A donkey snorts as it passes. A child calls for his mother, voice breaking just slightly. But here, in the shadow of the resin stall, time seems to shift, not forward, but inward. Haroun opens another jar. This one contains old benzoin, darkened, sticky, its scent faint and syrupy. He touches the rim with his finger and wipes it on a cloth scrap. Do you remember the woman from Homs? He asks. The one who wore too much violet? Yusuf chuckles, the memory arriving like a soft breeze. She smelled like a letter sealed with wine. They both laugh quietly, not mockingly, but with the fondness of time softened. Haroun leans back, his elbows resting on the stack of cedar crates behind him. You still work with that boy, Marwan? Yusuf nods. He listens well. That's more than most. Listening, Haroun mutters, is harder than speaking. But more useful. Yusuf nods. He selects a small portion of the resin blend and folds it gently into a square of cloth. Haroun does not name a price. Between them, scent is not traded, it is shared. Thank you, Yusuf says, standing again. For the dusk. Haroun gives a lazy wave of the hand. Go on then, perfumer. Chase your quiet. Yusuf steps away from the stall, cloth-wrapped resin in hand. The scent lingers on his sleeve, strange, but beautiful. A story not yet told. He returns to the outer corridor, where the sun filters through again. The market has changed subtly, a different pace now, a different hour. Vendors beginning to shade their baskets. Shadows moving across their blankets like turning pages. But Yusuf is not done yet. There is one more stop he must make, a place where scent is not sold, but grown. Beyond the resin seller's stall, the noise of the souk begins to thin once more. Yusuf turns down an alley that narrows quickly, the walls on either side drawn close together like cupped hands. The stone is older here, smoothed by centuries of footsteps, patched in places with worn bricks. At the end of the lane is a wooden door, barely noticeable but known well to those who listen with more than eyes. Yusuf knocks only once. The door opens with a whisper of hinges, and from within comes the scent of green things, not wild, but tended. Not strong, but constant. A garden. Inside, the light softens. It is not a grand place, only a square of earth enclosed by high walls, with tiled paths that lead between small plots of lavender, marjoram, rose, and thyme. Clay pots line the edges, each one carefully labeled with ink that has faded under the sun. There are benches worn smooth with use, a fountain at the center, and fig trees that lean gently inward, casting dappled shade over the stone. The woman who tends it appears without sound. She is old, older than Yusuf, her hair the color of linen left too long in the sun. She does not speak as he enters. She only nods, and Yusuf returns the gesture. No words are needed here. This garden supplies not the market, but the people like Yusuf, those who understand that true scent begins long before the bottle. Each plant is grown not for beauty, but for memory. Here, petals are plucked not by the handful, but one at a time. Yusuf walks the garden slowly. He pauses beside a small bed of damask roses, not yet fully open, their fragrance still close to the heart. He leans down and inhales, and for a moment, the world narrows to that one breath. This rose is not the same as what is sold in the souk. It is softer, rounder, holding the heat of the earth and the coolness of dawn within its folds. He picks only 2 blossoms, one just opening, one nearly gone, and places them into a small cloth pouch. Further along, he stops at the lavender. The spikes sway gently in the breeze, their purple heads nodding like dozing listeners. He rubs a few between his fingers, then breathes in. The scent is dry, sharp at first, then clean and faintly bitter, like old cloth kept in cedar drawers. He gathers a handful of petals that have already fallen, never plucking. Lavender teaches patience. The woman watches him from the shade. She does not interrupt. She knows Yusuf's rhythm, just as he knows the garden's. He circles the thyme bed, fingering the small leaves. No need to take any today, he only wishes to greet it. He passes the jasmine, blooming too early in the season, but beautiful all the same. A single blossom is tucked behind his ear as a quiet joke to himself, a reminder that even in stillness, one may carry joy. When he finishes, he sits on one of the worn benches. The woman brings him a small cup of cold rose water and sets it beside him. He drinks it slowly. It tastes faintly of clay and sunlight. The garden is quieter this year, she says, her voice low and sanded by time. So is the world, Yusuf replies. They sit together in silence. Not as friends, not as strangers, simply as people who share reverence for things that grow slowly. He does not linger long. As the sun begins to tilt westward, Yusuf rises, thanks the woman with a hand to his heart, and steps out through the quiet door. The pouch of petals rests lightly in his pocket. But the garden, like a scent, lingers far longer than its form. The walk back from the garden is slow, not from fatigue, but from choice. Yusuf keeps to the narrow side streets, where the shade clings to the stones and the heat of the day rests gently on the skin, like warm linen pulled from a line. His shawl hangs loose over one shoulder now. The pouch of petals tucked inside his robe breathes faintly, as if the garden still follows him. When he turns into the quiet corridor leading to his shop, the noise of the souk is only a murmur behind him. Here, there is only the whisper of sandals on stone and the distant sound of a copper bell being rung to mark the changing hour. He finds the door just as he left it, open to the soft light, the scent of the room unchanged. Marwan looks up from the corner, where he's been sorting strips of muslin and recording measurements with a charcoal pencil on a scrap of parchment. The boy straightens. Did you find what you were looking for? Yusuf removes the pouch and sets it gently on the table. I wasn't looking, he says. But I found. Marwan smiles, used to such answers. Yusuf washes his hands, not from cleanliness alone, but as ritual. He pours cool water over his fingers, lets it trickle into a copper basin, then dries them on a worn cloth. With clean hands, he returns to the workbench. He unties the pouch and lays out its contents on a wide piece of muslin, the rose petals, still moist with life, the fallen lavender blooms, crumbling like purple ash, the jasmine blossom, now slightly bruised from the warmth of his walk. They do not look like much. But scent, like memory, is rarely about appearance. From a shelf near the back, Yusuf retrieves a small jar of clear sesame oil, pressed months ago, unfragranced, smooth. It is not precious, but it is patient. He sets a wide, shallow glass vessel on the table, one made by hand, its edges uneven, its base thick and cool to the touch. The petals are arranged gently at the bottom, one by one. Rose first, open, fragrant, a little tired from the sun. Then the lavender, sprinkled like a blessing. And finally, the jasmine, placed at the very center, as though it were a name not yet spoken. He pours the sesame oil slowly, until it covers the petals completely. The liquid glows faintly golden as it catches the late light from the doorway. Tiny bubbles rise and pop near the surface. The scent has not yet bloomed, that will take time. But already, the vessel holds something more than oil. It holds a moment. Marwan watches quietly, his hands folded in his lap. He knows not to speak during infusions. He has learned this, that some work is about being, not doing. Yusuf covers the vessel with a square of silk and ties it loosely with string. It will sit in the warmest corner of the room, near the shutter where afternoon light lingers longest. Not in direct sun, that would break the scent, but near enough that it steeps gently, like thoughts returning over time. He does not label it, not yet. He will wait until the oil has spoken. As he sets the jar aside, he wipes the table clean, not hurriedly but with a cloth that has known many such afternoons. Then, with a small sigh, he settles onto the cushion nearest the window, hands resting palm up in his lap. The shop is quiet again, only the faintest trace of lavender in the air. Outside, the city continues, louder now, preparing for the evening. But here, in this room of glass and dust and silence, a new scent begins to form. One that will not be sold. One that will not even be named. It will simply be remembered. As the sun lowers, the light inside the shop grows long and golden, slipping through the shutters like honey poured across stone. Dust motes drift through the beams, slow and silent, like thoughts passing across memory. Yusuf watches them for a while, saying nothing. Marwan has gone for the evening, his tasks finished and his movements as quiet as the shop itself. He left behind a small plate of almonds and figs wrapped in linen, Yusuf's supper, if he remembers to eat. But for now, Yusuf does not move. He sits still, hands resting gently on his knees, eyes turned toward the shuttered window where the city's noises come softened, the shouts of merchants closing their stalls, the roll of carts over cobbled alleys, the far-off clatter of a copper teapot being rinsed beneath a well. It is not silence, but something close. Yusuf rises slowly, stretching joints stiff from stillness. He moves to the back shelves, not to select anything, but to return things to their rightful places. Bottles from earlier are recorked. Silk testing strips are folded and burned in a small brass bowl, the smoke rising faint and sweet with traces of benzoin and oak moss. He closes the shutters halfway, letting in only a thin band of light. Then, he lights the evening lamp, a simple clay vessel filled with olive oil and a single cotton wick. The flame is small but steady. Its scent is nearly nothing, which Yusuf prefers. Scent, at this hour, should rest. He walks to the infusion jar from earlier, the one holding rose, lavender, and jasmine in sesame oil, and checks it gently. No change, of course. But still, he listens. The petals lie quiet in their golden bath, like prayers folded beneath water. He places his hand on the vessel, palm flat, feeling the warmth gathered from the room. Rest well, he whispers. Behind him, the rows of bottles, each one holding a different note, a different memory, shimmer faintly in the lamplight. They do not speak, but their presence is felt. Each one a story. Each one awaiting. In a corner, Yusuf keeps a box of parchment scraps, fragments of old recipes, letters from distant places, bits of notes jotted in the margins of books. From it, he pulls a single slip, one written in his own hand years ago, during a time when his teacher still walked these rooms. A scent is not made to impress. It is made to remain. He folds the note and places it beneath a bottle of fig leaf distillate. Outside, the sky deepens into the color of plum and slate. The first evening calls echo down the alleyways, and lamps flicker on behind lattice screens. Inside, Yusuf prepares the last act of the day. He takes one bottle, not labeled, not sold, and uncorks it. From it rises the scent of warm earth after rain, touched with green and a faint sweetness of dried apricot. It is not for customers. It is for the room. He places a few drops onto a worn cloth and drapes it near the window. The scent is soft, familiar. It settles into the stone and the silence like a sigh, a way to mark the day's end not with closure, but with presence. Yusuf returns to his seat and sits once more. No candle is needed now, only breath. And the long, slow rhythm of evening. The shop sleeps, but does not forget. The morning begins gently, with the kind of light that takes its time reaching across the floor. Yusuf is already awake, seated cross-legged beside the open shutter, his fingers wrapped loosely around a small cup of warm milk steeped with cardamom. The shop is quiet, still breathing in the coolness that lingers before the sun gathers strength. Outside, a dove coos from a nearby rooftop, and the distant clatter of a broom against stone marks the start of the street's rhythm. He hears the footsteps before he sees them, not hurried, not uncertain. Just careful. The bell above the door does not ring. He has removed it this week, too sharp a sound for spring. Instead, the door creaks softly on its hinge, and Yusuf looks up to find a woman standing just inside the threshold. She is simply dressed, her robes the color of well-washed linen, her hands clasped in front of her. Beside her stands a girl, perhaps 10 years of age, with a face still caught somewhere between childhood and the edge of becoming. Yusuf rises slowly, setting his cup aside. He offers no words at first. Only a gentle tilt of the head, an invitation. The woman steps forward, her daughter following with measured steps. "Are you Yusuf the perfumer?" the woman asks quietly. He nods. "I am." There is a silence. Not awkward, just waiting. "I've come," she says, "to ask for a scent." "Not for me. For her." The girl looks down, then up again, curious but unsure. Yusuf gestures to the cushions by the low table, and they sit. "A scent for today?" he asks. The woman shakes her head. "For someday," she says. "When she becomes a woman. When she takes her place in the world." Yusuf folds his hands in his lap. He understands. This is not about perfume for adornment or ceremony. This is about inheritance. A scent the girl will carry not on her skin, but in her life. Something that begins here, now, but blooms much later, in memory, in seasons not yet seen. "Does she have a favorite scent already?" he asks gently, turning his gaze to the girl. She hesitates, then shrugs. "I like the fig tree," she says. "When it's warm." Yusuf smiles. That is a very good beginning. The mother reaches into a small cloth pouch and retrieves a narrow strip of parchment. On it is a short list, only a few words. "These are the scents she grew up with," she says. "What our home smells like. What her linens were washed in. What the kitchen held during the colder months." Yusuf reads the list silently. Fig leaf. Crushed mint. Rosewater. Warm milk with clove. Bay leaf. Soap ash. He nods, absorbing the rhythm of the scents. "You want a blend she can wear when she chooses to," he says, "but also, one that brings her back to these years." The mother breathes in slowly. "Yes." Yusuf turns to the girl. "Would you like to help me make it?" Her eyes widen, not in fear, but wonder. "I can." "Of course," Yusuf says. "It will be yours, after all." She glances up at her mother, who gives a small nod, then back at Yusuf. And so begins the slow work of remembering in scent. Yusuf rises and begins to gather small bottles, not many. Just enough to begin listening. Behind him, the girl leans forward, her hands now open, resting on the table. She does not yet know that what she will carry will last longer than cloth or coins. It will not be worn every day, but it will be hers, and it will whisper of fig trees, warm kitchens, and quiet afternoons, when the world was soft, and someone listened. The room is still. The girl leans forward, her knees tucked beneath her as Yusuf places 3 small bottles before her on a smooth piece of linen. Each one contains a single note from her mother's list, not blended, not combined. Just alone, waiting. "We begin," Yusuf says softly, "with listening." She gives a tiny nod, still unsure, still quiet, but watching closely. The first bottle is opened, fig leaf. Yusuf holds it gently beneath her nose, but not too close. Breathe as though remembering, he says. Not searching. She inhales slowly. The scent drifts up like warmth caught in cloth, green and sweet, with a hint of the sun on bark. Her eyes blink once, as though surprised. It smells like summer, she says, when the shadows are long. Yusuf's face softens. Yes, he murmurs. Exactly. He sets the bottle aside and reaches for the second, mint. But not sharp mint. This is a crushed, softened variety, harvested from the courtyard after morning watering. It smells not like spice, but like damp stone and fresh leaves underfoot. The girl leans in and breathes again. She exhales slowly. That one, she says, smells like when I spill water on the steps, and it dries before mother notices. Yusuf laughs, quiet and full. Scent remembers even small mischief. She smiles, her first true smile since entering. The third bottle, rosewater. Familiar. Simple. Used in sweet rice, in handwashing, and dabbed on the neck after bathing. She lifts her chin this time, eager now. The rosewater drifts to her like a breeze. That's me, she says. That's our house. Yusuf nods. Rose is not just for weddings or celebration. In some homes, it means home. He lets her smell them again, this time all three, one at a time. He asks her nothing. He only watches her eyes, the way her breathing slows, the way her hands relax. The room holds the warmth of early day. The lamplight from before is now replaced by sunlight through lattice, casting soft, broken patterns on the floor. After a pause, he adds a fourth bottle, clove-infused milk. It is faint, more memory than smell. The kind of scent that lives in cloth long after washing, in the folds of a mother's shawl, in the kitchen corner during winter months. The girl's face changes slightly when she breathes it in. That's the night my father was sick, she whispers. Mama stayed up boiling milk. She says no more. Yusuf nods once. Gently, without pressing. That note, he says quietly, is for strength. The girl's mother, sitting just behind her, brushes a hand across her daughter's back. They do not exchange words. Yusuf places the last two bottles on the cloth, bay leaf and soap ash. Unusual choices, not sweet, not floral. But real. Domestic. Familiar. The girl smells the bay leaf and frowns slightly. It's not pretty. It doesn't need to be, Yusuf replies. It needs to be true. She nods. The soap ash is last. The faintest of all. More clean than scented, with a whisper of lime and wood fire. The kind of scent that's only noticed when it's gone. That's the basin, the girl says, in the morning. Yusuf lays out all 6 bottles now. Each one part of her home. This blend, he says, will not sing loudly. It will not dazzle. But it will remain. Like a story you forget you know, until it finds you again. The girl nods slowly, her hand hovering over the fig leaf bottle. Can we start with this one? Yusuf smiles. Yes, he says. We begin with green. And so they begin mixing, not quickly, but as though writing a letter. The bottles are arranged in a circle now, like small companions at a gathering, each one waiting to speak. Yusuf reaches for a narrow glass vial, shaped like a reed stem. Its base is heavy, meant for balance. Its sides thin, meant for listening. He holds it out to the girl. You'll blend it yourself, he says softly. Drop by drop. Nothing more. Her hands hover over the fig leaf bottle again, and with Yusuf's quiet guidance, she uncorks it and lifts the dropper. The oil falls slowly, 1 drop, then 2, into the bottom of the vial. The scent of green earth rises, soft and hopeful. Fig leaf will carry the beginning, Yusuf says. It opens like a door. She smiles faintly. It's like walking into the courtyard before anyone else is awake. Yes, Yusuf murmurs. Exactly. Next, she chooses rosewater. She adds it more cautiously, 1 drop only, watching it coil and stretch into the fig as if they already know one another. The room holds its breath. The scent is subtle now, a memory forming, but not yet clear. Yusuf places the vial beneath her nose. What do you smell? The girl breathes in, slow and long. It's softer now, she whispers. Like cloth after bathing. Then it's working, Yusuf replies. Now, the heart. She looks over the remaining bottles. Clove milk. Mint. Bay leaf. Soap ash. Clove, she asks, uncertain. It will deepen the memory, Yusuf says. But use only what you remember. Not what you think should be there. She hesitates, then nods, and adds half a drop. Not a full one. Yusuf watches, impressed. She is learning restraint. The blend darkens ever so slightly. The sweetness now has a center, a quiet weight. Next, she lifts the mint. She hesitates again. It's a little too loud, she says. So make it whisper, Yusuf offers. She does. 1 drop, then a second, but only after smelling the first. It balances the clove like water placed beside spice. Now, bay leaf. She lifts the dropper, but her face shifts. I think, no, that is allowed, Yusuf says. It smells like cooking. But I don't want this to smell like the kitchen. Then the kitchen will stay in the walls. Not the bottle. She sets it aside. Lastly, soap ash. She smells it again, gently, and nods once. 1 drop, she says. Why? Yusuf asks, not challenging, just curious. Because it's what's left over. After everything is done. Like the day before I sleep. Yusuf says nothing, but the corners of his eyes crinkle, the kind of smile that stays behind the eyes, not the mouth. The drop lands. He seals the vial, then rolls it gently between his palms, warming the oils, awakening the layers. It takes time, the movement slow, rhythmic, like rocking a cradle or smoothing cloth. Then he uncorks it. Together, they breathe it in. The girl's eyes close. That's it, she whispers. That's home. But, smaller. Yes, Yusuf says. A memory made portable. He hands her the vial. She cradles it, holding it in both hands like something delicate, not fragile, but precious. We'll let it rest now, Yusuf says. Scent is like thought. It needs time to settle. Will it change? She asks. Yes. Just a little. She nods, as if that is right. Behind her, her mother watches quietly, saying nothing, her eyes shining, not from sadness, but from recognition. This is more than perfume. This is inheritance. In the corner, the afternoon light begins to warm the walls. The scent in the vial is not loud. Not showy. It is gentle. True, the kind of scent you might not notice, until the day you need it most. The vial rests now on a square of linen near the window, tilted slightly toward the light. The oil inside catches the sun as it moves, swirling slowly like dust behind closed shutters. The scent no longer rises, not because it is gone, but because it is whole. It waits. Yusuf moves with the stillness of someone preparing something sacred, though there are no prayers, no incantations, no ceremony, just care. He opens a drawer beneath the counter, drawing out a slender glass bottle, frosted, pale green, its neck long and curved, shaped for the hand of someone gentle. A stopper made of olive wood rests beside it, sanded smooth from years of use. It carries no decoration. It does not need any. The girl watches, still holding the blending vial as though it were a cup of water meant only for her. This bottle, Yusuf says softly, was made to hold things that last. She passes the blend to him without a word. He tilts the blending vial and lets the scented oil pour in, not quickly, but with reverence. A single drop clings to the glass before slipping in after the rest. He wipes the lip with a square of muslin, then places the olive wood stopper with care. "This is not for the shelf," he says. "This is not to be sold." She nods. "It's for me." Yusuf takes a thin sheet of parchment and a sharpened reed, dips the tip into ink the color of pressed lavender, and begins to write, not her name, but the date, and a single line in Arabic script to be opened when the heart remembers. He ties the parchment to the bottle's neck with a thread dyed the shade of dried fig skin, a deep, dusty purple. The bottle is then wrapped in soft wool cloth, enough to cushion it but not to hide it. He places it gently into a small cedar box. "You must keep it where the light is warm," he tells her, "but not strong. Where it can listen, but not fade." She lifts the box in both hands, the wood cool against her fingers. It's light, but the kind of light that still holds weight, like a letter sealed and never sent. Her mother stands and lays a coin on the table, but Yusuf does not reach for it. "This is not a sale," he says gently. "Then take it," the woman replies, "as thanks." He nods once, placing the coin inside a clay dish, where it will sit until the day it feels needed. At the door, the girl turns back once. "Will the scent change?" she asks. "It might," Yusuf says. "Time always leaves its mark. But the heart of it, the fig, the rose, the clove, will remain." She smiles, not brightly, but deeply. Then she leaves, the cedar box tucked carefully beneath her arm. Yusuf stands for a moment after they go, the scent of the blend still faint in the room. He does not rush to clean. He does not reach for another bottle. He simply breathes. Outside, the shadows have shifted. It is late afternoon now. The city hums with its ordinary music, sellers calling, pigeons scattering, a child laughing over spilled almonds. Inside, one new scent has been made, not to wear, but to carry, like a thread woven quietly through a life. The door closes behind them with only a soft creak. Outside, the footsteps of the mother and daughter fade into the stone rhythm of the alley. Yusuf does not follow. He simply stands for a moment, eyes resting on the cushion where the girl had sat, her palms open, her breath still lingering faintly in the room. There is no more to be done today. And yet, the shop feels full. Not crowded. Not busy. Just full. With stillness. With quiet purpose. With what was left behind. He moves slowly to the workbench. The bottles they used, fig leaf, rosewater, clove, mint, ash, remain uncorked. Their scents mingle faintly in the air, not overpowering, but soft and braided, like threads left woven across the floor. He begins to close them one by one. The fig leaf, its green clarity now softened by memory, the clove, warm and grounded, like a steady hand, the mint, the ash, the rosewater, each gently returned to their shelves, each bottle touched as if in farewell. With a damp cloth, he wipes the surface of the table, not to erase what happened there, but to bless it, to seal the moment with care. The scent will linger for hours, perhaps longer. But it will fade eventually. They always do. And yet, they never really leave. From a small drawer, Yusuf draws out a piece of old cloth, once white, now the soft color of moonlight on limestone. It's stained faintly in one corner with rose oil from years ago. He wraps it around one of his own bottles, one he hasn't opened in many seasons. A blend made long ago. For someone now gone. He uncorks it gently and breathes in. The scent strikes softly, a whisper of cedar, iris root, and burned honey. It is not current. It does not belong to now. But it returns. "You are still here," he murmurs, barely aloud. He replaces the stopper and sets it beside the others. The bottle does not ask to be used, only remembered. Outside, the day continues its gentle descent into evening. From the rooftops, shadows begin to lengthen, stretching down across market stalls, across broken tiles, across the palms of those who have already begun their prayers. The city hums. The breeze begins to turn cooler. There is an old calm settling. Yusuf lights the evening lamp again, the wick catching with a flicker. He adjusts its flame low, just enough to keep watch. Then he returns to his cushion. He closes his eyes. Not to sleep, just to rest. And as he does, a thought drifts through him like scent on air. Perhaps the best blends are not the ones that last longest, but the ones that return unexpectedly. In a room, in a piece of cloth, in a dream. They need no name, only a place to rest. The oil in the girl's cedar box will be opened someday. Not today. Not tomorrow. But when she needs it. And when she does, it will speak of fig trees, and soft linen, of mint on stone, and of the day she sat in a quiet room, while someone listened. The sun has slipped beneath the rooftops, and the air in the perfumer's shop has cooled. Outside, the streets no longer call with the sounds of barter or footsteps. The shutters are drawn. Lamps glow behind lattice windows like soft coins scattered through the dark. In Yusuf's workshop, there is no music, no prayer, no conversation, only the low flicker of a flame and the steady breathing of copper and water. He moves more slowly now, not from weariness, but reverence. This is the hour not of making, but of becoming. At the center of the workbench sits an alembic, his oldest tool. A still made of beaten copper, shaped like a bent bird with a long neck and a wide belly. It is not large, not impressive. But it is precise. And deeply familiar. Yusuf runs his hand along its side. The copper is warm even before the flame is lit, a memory of past work, past nights. Beneath it sits a clay brazier filled with embers banked low, the fire held in patient silence. Tonight's distillation will not be rushed. It cannot be. You don't make scent, Yusuf once heard his teacher say, you listen until it arrives. Tonight, he will listen. He lifts the lid from a clay bowl nearby and releases the scent of orange blossom. The petals are delicate, gathered before dawn the previous morning and wrapped in silk. Now they rest, barely moving, like breath held in the dark. With 2 fingers, he scoops the blossoms and places them gently into the alembic's belly. They fall like snow, not with sound, but with presence. Layer after layer until the vessel is nearly full. He adds just enough well water, drawn that afternoon and cooled in the shadows. The scent rises faintly, a marriage of wet copper and green sweetness, soft and round. He seals the lid slowly, adjusting the coil where the vapor will pass and condense. Then he lights the fire, not with haste, not with matches, but with a glowing ember transferred from the brazier, nestled under the vessel, coaxed into whispering heat. The alembic does not hiss or spit. It sighs. Yusuf watches. He does not stir. He does not write. He does not speak. Instead, he waits, the same way he once waited beside his father's bed, listening to breath. The same way he waits now for scent to speak. The first droplets of hydrosol will not come for nearly an hour. And so he sits. The room smells faintly of copper, silk, and the distant promise of orange flower. He leans back against the wall, eyes soft, listening, not for sound, but for shift. Distillation is not just the separation of scent, it is the drawing out of truth. And truth, Yusuf knows, always rises slowly. The air inside the shop has grown still. Not heavy, not hushed with tension, just slow, as though the walls themselves are exhaling. The alembic murmurs now, faintly. The water within is not yet boiling, but rising, urged upward by the gentle flame beneath. The coil above remains dry, cool, waiting. Transformation has begun, though the eye cannot see it. Yusuf does not rush to check. He knows this rhythm by heart. Instead, he remains seated, his back against the worn plaster wall, his hands resting palm down on either side of him. The copper lamp nearby casts long, warm shadows across the shelves and tools. There is no movement outside the shuttered window, only the soft flick of breeze beneath the sill, cool and unbothered. This is a time when thought grows quieter, and so, he lets it. He watches the outline of the still, the way its belly glows faintly from within, the way its neck curves downward like a nodding head. When the first drop comes, it is nearly silent. A tiny bead gathers at the end of the copper spout, quivers, and falls into the waiting glass vessel beneath. Yusuf hears it. Just barely. Not the sound itself, but what it means. The essence has begun. The scent is still faint, barely more than water, but he knows what follows. In time, the orange blossom's soul will rise with the steam and cool in the coil. It will become something it never was in the garden. It will become clarity. He approaches the alembic now. Slowly. Respectfully. The glass receiving vessel is simple, unadorned. But it cradles something rare, the first water of the flower, light, floral, slightly green, as though the sun itself had been distilled. He lifts it gently and wafts the scent toward him. It is not perfume. It is not sharp or dramatic. It will never cling to cloth or announce itself in a crowded room. But it will soothe. It will be kept in a small bottle, used to wipe a baby's brow, or steeped in tea during long, quiet conversations. It will anoint the dead when words run out. It will remain. He pours the drop carefully into a larger container and sets the vessel back under the spout. Another drop follows. Then another. The rhythm begins. Plink, wait, plink, wait. He turns the flame ever so slightly lower. Too much heat, and the scent will break. Too little, and it will never rise. There is a lesson here, Yusuf thinks, though he does not try to name it. He returns to his seat and closes his eyes. Not to sleep, just to listen. And in the space between each drop, memories begin to surface. The first time he watched his teacher distill violet petals and cried from the sheer tenderness of the scent. The time his mother cooled cloths with rosewater to ease his fever. The bottle he made once for a woman who never returned, and the way its scent still sometimes catches him, uninvited, in the folds of winter clothing. Scent, he has learned, does not need permission to return. It moves the way thought does. Or longing. Now the glass vessel is half filled. He rises and gently stirs the hydrosol with a reed. The scent is brighter now, full of light, almost transparent. It is not quite orange blossom anymore. It is memory of orange blossom. He smiles to himself. You've become something else, he murmurs. And still, the alembic gives. The distillation continues. The fire burns low beneath the copper belly of the alembic, steady as breath. The scent of orange blossom grows richer now, not heavier, but fuller, as though the petals have begun to speak in longer sentences. Yusuf replaces the glass vessel with another, lifting the filled one and cradling it in his palms. He stirs it gently with a horn spoon, then decants it into a clay storage jar lined with beeswax. He moves without thought, as though memory has taken over the hands. And it has, because as the scent rises in soft ribbons from the jar, it brings him somewhere else. 12 years ago. Late winter. A different distillation. A different kind of fire. He had stood at this same bench, the still before him, though smaller then, and uneven in heat. Outside, it had rained for 3 days. Inside, the room was quiet, too quiet. His father had just died. The house had been full, of family, of prayers, of silence. But when they left, Yusuf had stayed here, among bottles, among tools, among the comfort of copper and glass. He had reached for what he had, not rose, not oud, not anything precious. He had chosen time and cypress needles. simple things. Things he had touched in his father's garden. Things that did not ask to be beautiful. He distilled them together. The scent that emerged was bitter, sharp, almost medicinal, but underneath, it held something else. Earth. Warm stone. A touch of green. He remembered how it made him cry, not from pain, but from recognition. It smelled like walking behind his father through the garden, barefoot, carrying a copper watering can. It smelled like the shade of the fig tree they had planted together. It smelled like a man who had never worn perfume, but always smelled like home. Yusuf still has that vial. He never wears it. Never opens it. But it rests in the back of a drawer, where nothing else is kept. Its label is faded. Its cork dry. But he knows it will still hold. Scent does not forget. Back in the present, the orange blossom hydrosol continues to gather in the vessel. Its scent is nothing like thyme or cypress, but it, too, holds something from before. It reminds Yusuf of his mother's hands rinsing white cotton in the courtyard basin, of warm linen left in the sun, of his own first attempt at blending, when he was no older than the girl who visited today. The still breathes, the fire murmurs, the room holds all of it. He walks slowly to the window and opens it just a finger's width. The air that enters is cool, carrying the faint scent of the alley, night-damp stone, a passing charcoal fire, a drifting trace of cardamom from the baker's chimney. The world sleeps, but inside this room, transformation continues. Not loudly. Not visibly, but faithfully, as it always has. The fire beneath the alembic has quieted now to a steady, low whisper, barely more than a glow, like the last light held in the corner of an eye just before sleep. Yusuf watches the final drops form at the mouth of the copper coil, each one falling into the receiving vessel with a soft rhythm. Not steady. Not predictable. But sure, like water from a mountain spring, finding its way. The scent in the room is no longer just orange blossom. It is heat and time and copper.it is memory and patience and waiting.it is the soft ache of work nearly complete. He stands by the bench, unmoving, his hands folded behind his back. There is no audience. No customers. No applause. No transaction, only this moment, only the quiet joy of making something real. He lifts the vessel one final time and inhales the scent with his eyes closed. There is nothing dramatic in it. No flourish. No crescendo. It smells like the shadow of a garden in bloom. Like the inside of linen when worn in spring. Like the skin of a child after a bath in rosewater. It smells gentle. And that, Yusuf thinks, is more than enough. He pours the last of the hydrosol into the wide-mouthed clay jar. Inside, the clear liquid ripples, catching the lamplight just enough to show movement. He covers it with muslin, ties it with twine, and writes one line on a paper label. Orange blossom, 3rd of Shaban, before moonrise. It will rest in the storeroom for several days. It will mellow. Settle. The water will darken slightly, and the scent will shift, just a touch, like the way a voice softens after a long conversation. Then, when it is ready, he will decant it into smaller bottles. Some will go to homes. Some to healers. A few drops, perhaps, will find their way into a wedding vial. Or a mother's handkerchief. Or the inside of a wooden cradle. He does not know where it will end up, and he does not need to. His task has been to bring it into the world, with care, with patience, and without hurry. That is enough. He begins to clean the still. First, the water, poured out carefully, still warm, into the stone basin. Then the petals, now wilted and spent, are scooped into a clay bowl. He does not discard them. He places them outside the back door, beneath the fig tree in the courtyard, where they will return to the soil. Even in their faded state, they are not wasted. He wipes the copper clean with a cloth dipped in lemon peel and ashes, gently restoring its quiet gleam. The room begins to feel like itself again, emptied, calm, listening. But as he works, he finds himself remembering a conversation from years ago. It had been late evening, much like this one. His teacher, an older man with a voice like rustling paper, had said, "You must be content to make what no one notices. The world will always admire what is loud, but the soul needs what is quiet." At the time, Yusuf had nodded. He hadn't fully understood. Now, years later, standing in a room warmed by a copper still and the scent of orange flowers, he does. No one will know how long he sat by the flame. No one will see the exact moment when the first drop fell. No one will thank him for the softness of this water, not directly, but they will feel it. In a home, on a pillow, between fingers rinsed in cool liquid. They will breathe in something gentle and not know why they feel safer, or lighter, or suddenly near to a memory they cannot quite name. And that will be the work speaking. Yusuf places the sealed clay jar on a high shelf. It joins a row of others, lined like sleeping companions, each holding its own patient story: rose, chamomile, laurel, verbena, basil blossom. Some have sat for years. Others will be opened tomorrow. He stands for a moment, his palm resting against the wood of the shelf. There is no pride in the gesture, only peace. He returns to the lamp and turns the wick lower still, until the flame is the size of a lentil, barely enough to light the clay walls. Then he walks to the door and opens it, stepping barefoot onto the stones of the courtyard. The fig tree above him shifts gently in the wind. The night is deep now, fully arrived. No voices. No carts. Only the sound of breeze across rooftops and the very distant lilt of a reed flute played by someone Yusuf will never know. He sits on the worn bench beneath the tree. The bowl of spent petals rests nearby. A single moth hovers above it, and there, under the dark sky, he allows himself to be still. Not planning. Not thinking, just being. The scent of orange blossom remains on his fingertips. It is light. So light, but real. He breathes it in, and his chest softens. His shoulders lower. His jaw unclenches. This is why he began. Not for markets. Not for gold. Not even for art, but for the silence that follows creation, when the world does not demand, and nothing must be proved, and what you have made simply is. A joy with no name, a joy no one sees, but one that stays. The stars above Damascus are clear tonight. The sky stretches like silk, dark and smooth, holding the weight of moonlight without effort. Yusuf sits alone in the courtyard, beneath the wide fig tree whose leaves barely move. The warmth of the fire from the distillation has faded now, replaced by the cool breath of approaching dawn. The bowl of spent orange blossoms rests near his feet, and the scent that lingers in the folds of his robe is faint, like the memory of a voice long after it has fallen silent. He does not move quickly. He does not speak. Instead, he watches the sky, not for signs, not for meaning, but simply because it is there. The stillness of night has always held something sacred for him, not in a religious sense, but in a way that feels like prayer nonetheless. The hour is late. The work is done, but he is not tired. Or if he is, it is not the kind of tired that sleep answers. It is the quiet ache of completeness, the weight one feels not from strain, but from finishing something gentle and true. Behind him, the shop rests in darkness. The flame has been snuffed. The jars are sealed. The air within the room is cool, now carrying only the last echoes of scent, orange blossom softened by time and silence. Yusuf closes his eyes. The still is cooling. The coil has stopped dripping. The tools are cleaned and wrapped. Nothing more is needed from him tonight. And yet, something lingers. Not duty. Not thought. Something else. A feeling, maybe, that what was made tonight will go on without him. Not far. Not loudly, but somewhere. He rises slowly and carries the bowl of spent petals to the edge of the courtyard, where the soil beneath the fig tree has been turned soft from watering. He kneels, digs gently with both hands, and folds the petals into the earth. They are warm from the still, moist with memory, fragrant even in their fading. You gave what you could, he whispers, not to the petals, but to the moment. He presses the soil over them, pats it down, and sits back once more. His knees crack softly. He smiles at the sound. He is not young, and yet, in this quiet work, he feels no older than the boy who once spilled rosewater on his teacher's scrolls and wept for an hour thinking he'd ruined a month's worth of notes. That same boy now folds scent and silence into the same breath. He steps back into the shop. The lamp on the shelf flickers low. The room smells of earth, warmth, and something else he cannot name, something like patience. He pauses near the row of clay jars, runs his fingers across their worn labels. They are like old friends, these jars. Each one holding something that once bloomed, once broke open to the sun, once gave its best. Now they rest in the cool dark, waiting for someone who needs them. Some will be used tomorrow. Some may not be touched for years. But none are forgotten. He reaches for one near the back, an old distillation of coriander and smoke, made during a bitter winter. The handwriting on its tag is younger, Messier. He doesn't open it. Just smiles. It's good to be reminded, we leave parts of ourselves behind in what we make. He turns to the wall opposite the shelves. There, nailed gently into the plaster, is a narrow wooden box no larger than a loaf of bread. It is closed with a tiny bronze latch. Inside, he keeps the blends never meant to be sold. The basket is empty now. His hands are lighter, yet he does not feel finished. Only, opened, the way the kiln had opened. A letting go. Some of those vessels may survive for years, sit on tables, hold grain, catch oil. Others may chip within days. A crack from the road. A careless hand. He cannot know. What matters is that they were shaped with care, with rhythm, with fire. That they passed through hands awake to their making, and that they now move onward, carrying silence, and heat, and a spiral no one sees. The house feels different when a Marcin leaves with the basket. Not emptier, not exactly. But quieter, as though a certain energy has gone with him. The kind that hovers around things in transition, that slight tension in the air when something shaped is about to part from the hands that formed it. Belalai stands at the doorway for a moment after he disappears down the alley. The dust from his sandals lingers in the morning light. She closes the reed door gently and returns to the courtyard. The spiral bowl still rests on the mat where he left it, unwrapped. Unmoved. She doesn't touch it. Not yet. Instead, she moves through the familiar rhythm of the late morning, folding the empty cloths used for wrapping, brushing stray ash from the ledge near the kiln, and tidying the low bench where they had eaten after the firing. Her hands know these motions without needing her thoughts. They are gestures inherited from the women before her, those who smoothed the days after the flame. By mid-morning, the courtyard grows warm again, though not unbearably so. The shadows have shortened. Somewhere down the street, a child cries out, then laughs. A dog barks, far off. There is a knock on the reed door, soft, then repeated. Belalai opens it and finds Iltani, the neighbor's eldest daughter, holding a worn jar with both hands. Her expression is shy but hopeful. Mother says, if you still have one of the smaller pots. Belalai smiles and gestures her in. She moves to the edge of the wall where a few unfired pieces from earlier weeks remain stacked. She chooses a modest jar, narrow-necked, with a slight lean in the base. It wouldn't have sold. But it's good clay, sealed and smooth. It will hold lentils, or oil, or stories. She holds it out. Iltani exchanges it with practiced fingers and hands over the old jar. A fair trade, not spoken, but understood. The older jar is chipped and soot-darkened, its life already long. Bellelai doesn't mind. She'll grind it down later, mix the fragments into future slip. They nod to each other. No coin, no record. Just trust in small things. After Iltani leaves, Bellelai sits beside the spiral bowl. She picks it up now, very slowly, as if the fire still lingers in its walls. She turns it over in her hands, thumb brushing lightly along the faint spiral. Almost invisible. But she knows where to find it. Her fingers helped carve it. She sets it on the stone shelf beside the hearth. Not for display. Just for being close. This one stays. Not because it is perfect. Not because it is needed. But because it holds something the others don't. Not just shape, memory. The weight of the day, the waiting, the shared tending of flame. Some pots are meant to go. Some are meant to remind. Outside, another neighbor passes by. An older woman with a cane, her movements slow but steady. She pauses at the doorframe. I heard the firing went well. Memory blends. Sorrow blends. One for a widow who never returned. One for a child who could not speak. One for the sound of rain on stone in a silent courtyard. He opens it now. Inside are 6 tiny bottles, each wrapped in cloth, each tagged with a short line. Not names, not ingredients, just feelings. He pulls one out and reads the label. The night the light stayed on. He smiles. He does not open it. Just holds it in his hand for a while. Scent, he has come to believe, is like a river. It runs through a life quietly, brushing past the edges of things, sometimes leaving behind driftwood, sometimes only ripples. It is not fixed, but it always remembers. He replaces the vial and closes the wooden box with care. Then he turns down the lamp and lets the room sink into shadow. Only the faintest outline of shelves and glass remains. In this darkness, Yusuf walks barefoot to the rear of the shop, where a small staircase leads to his private room. The steps are uneven from years of wear. He does not trip. He knows them like he knows his own hands. The upper room is bare, a single mat, a low chest, a cushion near a narrow window. He opens the shutters. The breeze enters like a guest that does not knock. Beyond the rooftops, the sky has begun to shift. A faint blue now bleeds through the black, like ink dissolving in water. The call to prayer has not yet begun. The city still sleeps. Yusuf sits on the cushion and leans against the window frame. He exhales. He does not plan tomorrow. He does not list ingredients. He simply rests. There is a quiet in his chest, the kind that doesn't ask to be named. Perhaps someone will speak of him one day. Perhaps they will not. But somewhere, someone will unstopper a vial. They will breathe in orange blossom and fig, mint or ash, rose or clove. They will pause. They may not know why, but something will soften inside them, and in that softening, he will remain. Not as a name, not as a man, but as a scent. A thread. A whisper folded into the corner of someone else's day. That is enough. Yusuf closes his eyes. The wind moves over the rooftops, the still cools, the world turns. And down below, in a jar on a quiet shelf, a little orange blossom water waits to be remembered. The first light of dawn enters like a secret, not all at once. Not boldly. But slowly, as though it is still remembering how to arrive. Yusuf wakes before the birds. His body stirs before thought. The mat beneath him is warm, and the air is cool on his cheek. Somewhere below, in the distance, the city yawns, faint clatter of wooden doors, a distant donkey braying, a whisper of cloth shaken free from sleep. He doesn't sit up immediately. Instead, he remains still, breathing in the scent of the early room, faint wood smoke, dust, old plaster, and somewhere beneath it all, a memory of orange blossom, so faint it might be imagined. The wind has stilled. The shutters are open. Beyond them, the sky is beginning to pale, not blue, not pink, just less dark. One bird calls. Then another. Yusuf rises slowly. No haste. No stiffness, though his knees murmur. He stretches, not for exercise but simply to greet the day with the full length of his spine. He pours a little water from the ewer and washes his hands and face. The water is cold. It wakes him, but gently. There is no mirror in the room. He does not need one. He knows the lines on his face, the gray at his temples, the softened folds beneath his eyes. He knows the weight of years, not as a burden, but as a layering, like the slow addition of oils to a blend. He lights a small lamp and descends the steps barefoot, one hand trailing along the stone wall. The shop below is still dim. But it smells like itself again. Cedar. Waxed wood. Residual petals. A memory of warmth. The clay jars remain where he left them. The tools are clean. The still is cool to the touch. He smiles softly. He opens the shutters on the street side of the shop and leans out for a moment. The alley is quiet. A few vendors are beginning to stir, laying out dates and bread, unfolding awnings with hands still half in dreams. A child runs past with a piece of flatbread, and the scent of warm flour trails behind him like a ribbon. Yusuf watches. He does not call out. He returns inside and begins to boil water for tea. He does not need much. Just heat. A few dried mint leaves. A small ceramic cup, chipped at the lip. As the kettle simmers, he opens a drawer and removes a small piece of linen, then walks to the back of the shop. There, on a shelf mostly ignored, sits a vial he hasn't opened in months. It is not labeled. He doesn't need it to be. He uncorks it slowly. The scent rises immediately, not strong, but familiar. Like an old friend who doesn't knock, only enters. It is thyme, cypress, a thread of laurel. He breathes it in once, deeply, then presses the linen over the lip of the bottle and tips it gently. The cloth absorbs just a trace. He folds it carefully and tucks it into the sleeve of his robe. The tea is ready. He pours it and carries it outside. The stone bench beneath the fig tree is still cool. The leaves above him are still. A few petals from last night's distillation have dried and curled, now scattered at the base of the trunk. He drinks slowly. There is no rush. There never is. He listens as the city wakes, not in noise, but in rhythm. Someone sweeping. Someone praying. A gate squeaking open. A wooden wheel creaking into motion. He doesn't need to be part of it all. Not today. He has done what he needed. He sets the empty cup down beside him and closes his eyes again, but this time, not to sleep, to remember. Not something specific, just the feeling of being here, of having made something soft in a world so often loud, of watching someone, a girl with wide eyes, discover that scent could hold a memory, of blending not for beauty, but for truth. He smiles. Somewhere in the upper room, a pigeon lands on the roof tile. The thud is soft. Familiar. He opens his eyes. He rises and returns inside. Today, the shop will open. Or it won't. Someone may come for rosewater. Or not. A letter may arrive from the coast asking for soap-scented oil. He may prepare a batch of narrowly. Or simply sweep the floor and do nothing more. It is all enough. They don't move. Amarsin finally speaks again. I'll mix new slip tomorrow. The next batch will need more strength. Belalai hums in agreement. We have old jar shards. I'll grind them tonight. Neither says must. Neither says now. Everything can wait, just a little. Amarsin rises and retrieves the spiral bowl once more. He places it in the center of the work table, not for display, but because it feels right. A pot that survives is not always a pot that leaves. Some are meant to remain, to listen, to remind. The day draws toward evening, and the courtyard softens with shadow. The kiln, the baskets, the shelves, they all settle again into stillness, like clay resting before the wheel begins anew. By lamplight, Belalai grinds the old shards into powder, slow and steady. Marcin adds water to the basin, his hands circling in silence. Tomorrow's clay forms in the quiet. Not yet shaped, not yet judged, only waiting. The spiral bowl rests near the hearth, catching shadows, holding still. Outside, the kiln sleeps, the fire is memory now. Nothing rushes, nothing presses, only breath, and dust, and the promise of return. In a potter's house, the day never ends, it only settles, and begins again. The courtyard sleeps beneath the stars. Marcin lies beside the kiln, hand beneath his head, dreams drifting like smoke. Belalai finishes her weaving by oil light, her fingers slow, her breath even. The spiral bowl catches a sliver of moon. No pots are shaped tonight. No fire is stoked, only stillness. Ash settles into every corner. Tomorrow, the clay will be stirred, but now, all things are quiet, the wheel, the hands, the breath. And somewhere deep within the earth, the next vessel waits to be born. He steps behind the counter and opens a drawer where scraps of parchment are kept. He tears one gently and writes a single line. Scent is what remains when words have left. He folds it and slips it into the box on the shelf marked personal. Then, almost without thinking, he walks to the door and leaves it slightly ajar, just a hand's width. Enough to say, "You may come in, if you wish." Enough to let the morning air enter. On the counter, he places a single glass bottle, not labeled. Not for sale. Inside is the water from last night's distillation. The orange blossom hydrosol gleams softly in the dawn light, not loud, not bright, but clear. A small moth lands near it. He watches. He does not move to brush it away. He lets it rest. In this shop, in this hour, everything is allowed to rest. Even scent, even silence, even him. He exhales once, deeply, not from effort, but from peace. Outside, the first call to prayer rises like a thread pulled through the morning. A man's voice, steady and low, moving across the rooftops, into open windows, into kitchens, into courtyards, and here, into this small room where oils sleep and a man with ink-stained fingers stands quietly, without needing to speak. Yusuf closes his eyes again. He does not need to say goodbye. The day will go on. The bottles will be opened. The scents will be remembered. And long after his hands have stilled, long after his breath has faded into the dust, someone, somewhere, will lift a cloth, or open a box, or touch a sleeve, and pause, just for a moment, and they will know, without knowing how, that something beautiful once passed through here, and stayed. Top of form, bottom of form, bottom of form.